we have Tony Lowe, the Regional Senior Director from Verticurl. He's up for presentation next on privacy readiness, the APAC Privacy Imperative. Sounds very exciting, right? Uncovering opportunities for growth through privacy readiness. Tony, are you ready? All right. Big round of applause for Tony, guys.
Thank you to have you all here today. So my name is Tony. I'm from Verticurl, and Verticurl is part of the WPP network. And what we do is we help brands across the region better connect and build better relationships with their customers. And we make that happen through data and technology. So today I want to talk about the privacy imperative. And this is quite important, especially in this marketing landscape now. It's pretty tough for marketers and organizations now to communicate with the customers, right? On the one hand, you have marketers who are trying to drive more relevant information. But then on the other hand, you have customers who are really concerned about sharing the data that us marketers really need to be able to drive that relevancy and personalization. So I wanted just to share with you something that had happened about a couple months ago. So a couple months ago, I received a strange SMS. And so within that SMS, I've never seen this number before. I actually live in Taiwan. So whenever an SMS comes in from a Thailand country code, I kind of feel that it's kind of weird. But then nevertheless, I open it up because it says, you have a speeding ticket that you haven't paid, right? So I'm thinking, okay, it's something that I have to pay. So I opened up, and there was a link there. So I clicked on it, and the landing page looked exactly like our motor vehicle department. It had the exact same design, but the only difference was that the website was a Wix.com website, right? And it was asking for my credit card payment. And once I saw that, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of weird. And I started to get a bit concerned about what I should be doing with my data, right? So ever since then, if you guys I don't know how many people do this, but I use Safari on my phone browser, and now it's all in private, so cognito mode. So I'm a bit more cautious now, and that actually brings up the next part, that in APAC is actually the epicenter of global breach incidents. So you'll see that APAC actually represents around 68% of the global breach tally for 2022. And there's about over 1.5 million breaches of the records exposed in APAC. And most of them are actually for the arts and entertainment, and also the retail sector. So these are the two largest sectors for breaches. So arts and retail, so arts could be events. Retail could be anything, when you're submitting your information through different websites for different brands that you like. In terms of statistics on additional information, what we found out was that 35% of the breaches were actually ransomware. And then for APAC, that accounted for 29%. And out of that, 9% of the breaches were as a result of phishing and email compromise. A big part of this, I think roughly around 8%, was because of cloud misconfiguration. So it could be things that were not set up or secured properly on the server and back end. So you may have heard there were breaches for Amazon as well as for Microsoft previously. And that actually counts for quite a bit. I think in general, in APAC, these misconfigurations account for around 8%, and globally it's around 3%. So I wanted to bring this up as well to kind of share with you some of the statements through a survey that was done through Think with Google. So you'll see that 70% of brands in APAC say they understood the privacy imperative. However, 87% of them said that they expect privacy to be greater importance to people over the next 2 years. However, in reality, 40% surveyed haven't taken any action to become more privacy ready. And only 40% of those are actually trying something or setting things new to experiment with. 60% of the customers say that being heard by brands they do business with is important, right? As consumers, when we give consent to share our data, we expect that the data that we provide to them are going to actually be used to drive more value to us, right? But 14% say brands know them, remember them, and understand their needs. So there's a big gap, right, where we think that they're going to do something that's going to give us value, but when it actually happens, there's only 14% that we feel has actually done that for us. So 71% expect a better, more personalized experience from the brands they interact with. However, most of the people, over 3/4, are still frustrated, right, that the expectations aren't met. And this happens quite a bit. Even myself, I go online and I do submit my information, hoping to get something that's more personalized for me. But oftentimes I do that. It's still quite generic in terms of the emails I receive, right, the SMS I get. And sometimes even within the app that I sign up for, it's quite generic. It's just a pure blast, within a specific category that I've been looking at. So then, what do consumers expect from personalization? So there's actually two things that's quite important from a consumer's perspective. Number one, we need to have a more consumer-centric model of how we collect data, right? And we also need to have a more focus on how we're more transparent around collecting the data for the clients, right? So if you take a look at this, there's two approaches. The first one is the customer-centric approach. The other one is the proactive trust-building approach. Was that blocking the screen? I felt that was blocking half the screen. I'll step aside a bit more. So customer-centric approach. So we need to know, and we need to be able to be transparent with the customer. First thing, what are the data that we're trying to collect? We may not want to collect all the data, right? We don't want to inundate customers with too much fields for them to fill in without truly understanding, what are the types of value that we're trying to drive for the customer, right? You'll see often a lot of businesses and a lot of organizations are asking for too much information, but they rarely use half of that information. So do we really need to capture all of that, right? And the ones that we do capture, what are we really going to be using to drive value for those customers? We actually should looking at more from a preference perspective, and also from a behavior and segment perspective, and also take a look at the different objectives that we're trying to achieve for the customer. So why is the data being collected, right? Being transparent about the intended use of the data that's being collected. Are we going to be giving them more personalized experiences on the website? Are we going to be sending them more relevant products or services through email, right? Are we using that information to perhaps make the experience better, right, across different channels and different touch points? Is that information going to be then informed both for online and even offline transactions? And how is data collected, right? So in general, most consumers are pretty trusting of different brands. So we need to make sure that we're defining the incentive or value exchange for them, right? So that when they provide that information, that's most relevant to each of the different segments. Trust building approach, 3 key things. The first one is cultivating consumer trust. So we need to be able to increase transparency on what we're doing with consumers' data across each of the different touch points, right? I know you go onto different sites, and now there's always that pop under banner that asks people to accept or not accept. We need to have more information there, right? Giving them more options. If they do accept, maybe they need to also have different options on what they're consenting to, right? Give them that option and be transparent, on the types of communication that you'll be sending to them. And I go back to my initial example. If I had subscribed or if I had signed up for the motor vehicle department to send me this information, they should actually make a mark on their website saying that we don't send SMS, we don't send payment requests through these channels, right? It's very clear so that as a consumer, I know what to expect upfront. So there's no ambiguity whether this is somebody who's trying to scam me, but is really from a trustworthy source. Great experience, leveraging your tech and data infrastructure. This is quite key because we've advanced so far now that there's a lot of technologies out there that are able to pull in data from different sources and also provide you with the right data and privacy consent. And with that, you can be more confident in collecting the first-party data. And then build a privacy-first, data-centric organization. So in marketing, we should actually be the shepherds of data privacy, right? So the marketing teams should be able to take ownership of data privacy processes and all the communication that goes with that. So where does that lead us? So we're trying to get from managing customers to designing a meaningful relationship. So from managing customers, we're trying to go from a one-dimensional consumer understanding to a four-dimensional evolving customer understanding. So that could be, a financial bond, it could be an emotional bond, social bond, or structural bond. We're doing things to consumers, to doing things with consumers. Communication in service of brand values to relevant value in every single interaction. And personalization to more deeper personalization across every single touch point. And business-focused value creation to creation of value that's true value exchange. So opportunities for growth. So companies that link all their first-party data sources can generate double the incremental revenue and over 1.5 times the improvement in cost efficiencies over companies who are having limited data integration. So I wanted just to go back to this slide. This is quite important because there are solutions out there such as CDP, and I think the previous speaker was talking about how CDP was used for marketing, but CDP actually can be used for more than just marketing, right? It could be used for customer support. It could be used for internal resources as well. But it's a way for us to stitch and collate data from different sources, whether it's online or offline. And this would be able to have each of the individuals within the organization a single view of each of the customer's profile that's consistent and becomes a single source of truth across different departments, right? And that's really important. If we take a look at this, we have a solution now that pulls in data from so many different sources. We're then able to standardize that data, right? And with that data, once it's standardized, we're then able to process it so that it can be activated across the right channels. But within that, it's important to note that when we are trying to pull in these different sources, we have many sources that are both online and offline across different touch points, and each one of them may have different experiences for the customers in terms of data, consent, and management, right? So leveraging these technologies makes that process a lot more seamless and a lot more smooth, right? So for example, perhaps I wanted to sign up for an app for a brand, but on there, ask for my consent. I didn't go onto their website and I sign up and ask me for consent there. But maybe there are some transactional information that I signed up separately that I'm on there. But how do we easily give the customer option to be able to turn that on and off? These solutions make that a lot more seamless for them, right? And whenever that happens in real time, it gets updated across the board. Right, so 3 key things. The first one is obviously, we want to gain user trust, improve our experience with the customers. This is probably the most important. It is our duty as organizations and marketers to really bring that trust to our consumers, right? They want to have that good experience with us, and that all starts with making sure that they're at ease with the data and information that they're providing to us. Number two, we want to make sure that we're investing in privacy-safe technology and infrastructure, right? We need to do an assessment, and this is an ongoing journey to make sure that from end to end, any information that we're capturing is aligned with both regulations and also with expectations from the customers. And number three, privacy maturity is a journey, right? So it may not happen right now, and a lot of organizations are trying to get there, but it's all about making sure that the teams are up to date, right? The technologies there are also up to date, and we're experimenting to make sure that it's the right balance between how we're able to collect the information, how we're able to deliver the relevant information to the customers, but then also making sure that everything that we're doing follows the privacy regulations and consent with the customers. That's the end of my presentation.